Figure collecting in 2025, let's talk about it. Hey, great to have you here. So I wanted to make a video giving my thoughts on the modern era of figure collecting. I will say, regardless of my next few points, I have slowed down personally on growing my own collection. Jumping into my first thought here, toy companies have come across as charging higher prices than ever. I realize the goal for any company is to make profit, but it's gotten a little bit out of control. And I know there's world economy factors here like the tariffs playing a huge role, but regardless of the reasoning, prices are becoming higher than what I speculate most people could reasonably value a product at. And this is happening pretty much across the board. I've seen things like Marvel Legends rising in prices. On this channel, I mostly have stuck to S.H. Figuarts, and they've been no different. My most recent pre-orders were the reissued Broly and the cooler for $90 each, and while high, felt semi-justifiable. However, now we have things like this new Krillin and Guru coming in at $80 and $310 respectively. I just don't see the value there. On top of that, you do have issues at times with QC, and when you're paying such a higher price at a premium, having figures that have QC issues wind up being a problem. Obviously, the cooler and Broly I mentioned are reissues, so we know what those are like, but anything coming out in the future, we don't really know the quality and what those are going to be. Like, if I'm thinking on the budget side, we have like this Goku, for example, who a lot of people were really let down by as far as a budget figure. Even at the $35 price point, he doesn't necessarily feel up to par when it comes to the standards of S.H. Figuarts. And then beyond that, when we're looking at something more premium or something you pay a higher price for certain unique characters, you have Trunks, for example, who obviously had the issue with, you probably can't see it too much, but his legs were super wobbly. So there's a lot of problems you can run into some of these figures when you're paying a high price. It's hard to justify necessarily spending that money on something that you're not necessarily sure what the outcome is going to be. I think that same problem has kind of happened with movie theaters. Back in the day, you would go see a movie, even if it was bad, you'd be like, all right, cool, I spent some time seeing a movie, no problem. But nowadays, with rising prices, you kind of have to choose something that really you want to see and you think you're going to wind up liking. Because if you go out for a regular ticket and buy concessions, you're going to wind up spending kind of a decent amount of money on something you may not have fully enjoyed. So that's just kind of another side example of just, you have to be more mindful these days when it comes to picking certain things up. And with figure collecting, it's kind of harder to verify what the end product is going to be when you do have these examples of some QC problems. My shelf space behind me with my S.H. Figuarts line is mostly full at this point, so I've been more mindful as far as what I pick up personally. I didn't wind up going down the Dyma line. I passed on last year's convention exclusives, and I even passed on the $80 nail that we had earlier this year. Going forward, I'll mostly stick with Dragon Ball Z, but I definitely don't plan to be a completionist and more intentional with my purchasing. When we're approaching the point of any unique character release being in the triple digits as far as price, I think you start to lose some of your audience. Being a big Lord of the Rings fan, for example, I debate going in on those figures and that new line coming out, but once again, the releases are going to wind up being close to $100 each. So a little bit of a tough pill to swallow when things like the actual representation of the character from the movie isn't fully representational in the figure form. And on top of that, this is less of a problem with S.H. Figuarts compared to other lines, but you're not positive they're going to wind up completing like the entire Fellowship, for example. So it's a little hard to say, I'm going to pick up Aragorn and Frodo when you're not positive if we're going to get like Gimli or Boromir or things like that. So there's a bit of a challenge when you're jumping into a fresh line as far as, is this going to be successful or not? Once again, not as big of an issue with S.H. Figuarts, in my opinion, compared to some other lines, because they don't drop a whole lot of lines, but it's still potentially an issue to be aware of. I could go on endlessly here as far as the current state of figure collecting, but I just wanted to post a quick video of my thoughts on the direction of collecting as a whole. So let me know, what are your thoughts here? If you're a collector, have your buying habits changed over the last year? I'd love to hear what your perspective is on the industry as a whole. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.